greatest lie ever told is not that the devil exists. The greatest lie is the one that explains Pont High Dot. He was condemned. We have been handed a simple story, a nursery rhyme for the soul, designed to lull our curiosity to sleep. We are told of an angel, the most beautiful, the most brilliant, named Lucifer, the morning star. We are told his heart swelled with pride, that he looked upon the throne of God and said in his heart, "I will ascend to heaven, I will raise my throne above the stars of God, I will make myself like the Most High." And for this sin, this ultimate act of cosmic arrogance, he was cast down from heaven like a bolt of lightning, his name forever blackened, his light forever twisted into darkness. This is the story we know. It is neat. It is clean. It provides a clear villain, a definitive reason for evil, and a cautionary tale against ambition. But what if I told you that this story is a deliberate and profound misdirection? What if the official narrative is not just incomplete, but is, in fact, the inverse of the truth? Imagine, for a moment, that Lucifer's fall was not a punishment for rebellion, but the catastrophic consequence of an act of profound love, an act of liberation. Imagine that he was not cast out for wanting to be like God, but for attempting to reveal a divine secret that Dante Quarti humanity could be like God. This journey we are about to embark on is not for the faint of heart. It requires you to set aside the dogma you have been taught and to look with new eyes at the ancient texts, not just the ones canonized and approved, but the ones hidden, burned, and forbidden. We will walk through the pages of the Book of Enoch, the Gnostic Gospels of Nag Hammadi, and we will re-read the familiar story of Genesis, not as a fall from grace, but as the violent birth of human consciousness. The truth of Lucifer is not a story of a rival to God. It is the story of a whistleblower, a Promethean figure who stole fire from the gods and gave it to mankind, and was eternally punished for it. The question is not, did Lucifer fall? The real question is, what truth did he reveal that was so dangerous, so world-shattering, that he had to be made the eternal enemy of all creation? To begin unraveling this cosmic conspiracy, we must first pull at the very first thread of the official story, the scriptural evidence. Where precisely in the Bible does it tell the story of the angel named Lucifer and his rebellion? The answer may shock you. It doesn't. Not in any clear, unambiguous way. The two passages most often cited by theologians are from the Old Testament prophets, Isaiah and Ezekiel. For centuries, these have been presented as Exhibit A in the case against the devil. Let's look at Isaiah chapter 14. "How you have fallen from heaven, O morning star, son of the dawn! You have been cast down to the earth, you who once laid low the nations. You said in your heart, I will ascend to the heavens, I will raise my throne above the stars of God, I will make myself like the Most High." It seems clear, doesn't it? A perfect description of a fallen angel. But there is a critical piece of context that is almost always omitted. Read the verses just before it. The chapter begins with the explicit instruction, "You will take up this taunt against the king of Babylon." This entire passage, this beautiful poetic lament, is not about a celestial being. It is a politically charged victory song mocking a dead, arrogant human ruler, the king of Babylon, a notorious enemy of Israel. It uses celestial imagery, a common practice in the ancient Near East, to describe the king's immense power and his subsequent, humiliating downfall. He saw himself as a god, and he was brought down to the dust. Now, let's turn to Ezekiel chapter 28. "You were in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone adorned you. You were anointed as a guardian cherub, for so I ordained you. You were on the holy mount of God. You were blameless in your ways from the day you were created till wickedness was found in you. So I drove you in disgrace from the mount of God, and I expelled you, O guardian cherub." Again, it sounds exactly like the story we've been told. An angel in Eden, a guardian cherub cast out. But once more, look at the context. The preceding verse states, "Son of man, take up a lament concerning the king of Tyre." Like the passage in Isaiah, this is not a divine history lesson. It is a lament, a dirge, aimed at another human monarch. the obscenely wealthy and powerful king of Tyre, whose city was a major commercial hub, and who, in his hubris, saw himself as divine. The text uses the language of the Garden of Eden mythologically to emphasize how far this king had fallen from his once blessed state. So, the two primary pillars of the Luciferian rebellion story in the Old Testament are, upon closer inspection, about human kings. The application of these verses to a fallen angel was a later interpretation, a retroactive fitting of Scripture to a developing theology. So where did the name Lucifer even come from? It is a Latin word. It's not Hebrew or Greek. It comes from the Latin Vulgate, St. Jerome's 4th century translation of the Bible. The original Hebrew word in Isaiah is Helo ben Shahar, which means shining one, son of the dawn. It refers to the planet Venus, the morning star. In Roman astronomy, the morning star was called Lucifer, which literally translates to light bringer or light bearer. Imagine the irony. The name that has become synonymous with absolute evil, with the Prince of Darkness, literally means the bringer of light. How did this happen? It was a convergence of interpretation. Early church fathers, looking to create a cohesive narrative for the origin of evil, connected these poetic passages about fallen kings with comments from Jesus. In the New Testament, like I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven, they stitched them together, creating a backstory for the character of Satan, the adversary. And in that process, the name of the light bringer, from a prophecy about a Babylonian king, became forever attached to the ultimate enemy of God. The question we must ask is, was this a mistake of translation, or was it a deliberate act of ideological warfare? Was the light bringer so feared that his very name had to be inverted, his gift of illumination reframed as a beacon of darkness? Perhaps the name itself is the first clue. He wasn't bringing darkness, he was bringing a light so brilliant, so revealing that the established order could not tolerate it. If Lucifer's sin wasn't a simple power grab, then what was it? What was the dangerous knowledge he possessed? To find the answer, we must leave the courts of Babylonian and Tyrian kings and travel back to the very beginning, to the cradle of humanity, the Garden of Eden. Here, we find not a fallen angel, but a serpent. For millennia, theology has conflated the two, arguing that the serpent was merely a vessel for Satan, for Lucifer. Let us, for the sake of this investigation, accept that premise. If the serpent is the light bringer, then what is the nature of the light he brings? The story is familiar. Adam and Eve live in a state of perfect childlike innocence. They are naked and unashamed. There is only one rule in this paradise. You must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat from it, you will certainly die. It is a prohibition, not against an action, but against a form of knowing. Now, the serpent enters. Notice his first words. He doesn't command or threaten. He asks a question, the first question in the Bible, a tool designed to spark critical thought. Did God really say, "You must not eat from any tree in the garden"? He is introducing doubt, forcing Eve to analyze the commandment for herself. Eve corrects him, stating the rule accurately, but adding her own interpretation. We must not touch it, or we will die. The fear has already magnified the prohibition. Then the serpent makes his case, and this is the single most important moment in the narrative. He says, "You will not certainly die, for God knows that when you eat of it your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." This is the charge. This is the supposed deception. The serpent is accused of being the father of lies for saying these words. But was it a lie? Let's analyze his claims one by one. First, you will not certainly die. Did they die? Physically? No. Not at that moment. The threat was immediate death, but they lived on for hundreds of years, according to the text. The concept of spiritual death is a later theological interpretation. In the plain reading of the text, the serpent's claim holds true. They did not drop dead. Second, your eyes will be opened. What happens immediately after they eat the fruit? Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized they were naked. The serpent's prediction comes true, word for word. Third, and most crucially, you will be like God, knowing good and evil. This is the ultimate blasphemy. This is the heart of the supposed deception. But what does God himself say just a few verses later, after discovering what they have done? He speaks to the other divine beings in his council, the in Genesis, and says, "Behold, the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil." Read that again. God himself confirms that the serpent told the truth. Humanity, through the act of eating the fruit, had indeed become like the divine beings, attaining a level of consciousness previously denied to them. The serpent did not lie. He told the forbidden truth. The fall of man was not a fall at all. It was an ascension, a forced, painful, and unsanctioned evolution from biological creature to sapient being. They did not fall from grace. They were violently ejected from a gilded cage of ignorance. The original sin was not disobedience. It was the act of claiming their divine birthright of knowledge and self-awareness. So why the punishment? Why the cherubim with the flaming sword to block the way back? Look at God's next words. "And now, lest he put out his hand, and take also of the tree of life, and eat, and live forever." The sentence cuts off, and the immediate action is their expulsion. The fear was not what humanity had become, but what they might become next. A being with God, like consciousness, sultaned immortality, a true equal, a competitor. The garden was not a paradise lost, it was a containment facility. The fall was a security breach, and the serpent, Lucifer, the lightbringer, was the one who handed the inmates the key, revealing that the walls of their prison were in their own minds. His crime wasn't lying to humanity. His crime was exposing the lie that was being told them. The lie that they were meant to be nothing more than obedient pets in a divine zoo. To find more evidence for this staggering reinterpretation, we must venture beyond the 66 books of the standard Protestant Bible. We must look to the texts that were deemed too dangerous, too strange, too revealing to be included. Our first stop is the incredible and enigmatic Book of Enoch. Attributed to the great-grandfather of Noah, this book was considered scripture by many early Christians, and it is even quoted directly in the New Testament Book of Jude. It provides a far more detailed account of the angelic world and their interactions with humanity than anything in the Old Testament. Enoch tells the story of a specific group of angels called the Watchers, or Grigori. A band of 200 of these celestial beings, led by an angel named Samiaza, looked down from heaven and were consumed with desire for the daughters of men. This sounds like a simple story of lust, but it is far deeper than that. They swore an oath together, a pact to go through with a forbidden plan. They descended to earth, took human wives, and had children with them. These children were the Nephilim, the giants of old, a hybrid race of immense power and destructive appetite that corrupted the earth. This part of the story is famous, but it is what the Watchers did next that is crucial to our investigation. They didn't just engage in forbidden relationships. They became humanity's tutors in forbidden knowledge. The Book of Enoch meticulously lists which angels taught which subjects. The leader, Samiaza, taught enchantments and the cutting of roots. An angel named Azazel, a figure often conflated or identified with Lucifer, is singled out for special condemnation. What was Azazel's crime? He taught men to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the earth and the art of working them, and bracelets and ornaments, and the use of antimony, and the beautifying of the eyelids, and all kinds of costly stones, and all coloring tinctures. Azazel taught humanity metallurgy, warfare, and cosmetics. He gave them technology, and other angels taught other secrets. Barakijal taught astrology. Kokabal taught the constellations. Arakiel taught the signs of the earth. Shamsiel the signs of the sun, and Sariel the course of the moon. In short, the Watchers gave humanity science, technology, astronomy, agriculture, and civilization. They were the culture bearers, the teachers of the arts. And for this, they were condemned. God sends the archangels to imprison them. Azazel is bound hand and foot and cast into total darkness in the desert. The book declares, "The whole earth has been corrupted through the works that were taught by Azazel. To him ascribe all sin." Think about this. The greatest sin, the one that corrupts the entire world, is not murder or theft. It is the transmission of knowledge. It is teaching. The story of the Watchers in Enoch is a perfect macrocosm of the story of the serpent in Eden. A celestial being or beings breaks ranks. They see humanity in its primitive state and decide to elevate it. They give them the tools to build, to create, to understand the cosmos, to defend themselves. They give them the foundations of culture, and the punishment is absolute. A devastating flood is sent to wipe the slate clean, to destroy the Nephilim and the corrupted humanity that had learned too much. This is not a simple morality tale. It is an ideological statement. Unsanctioned knowledge, knowledge given without the approval of the ruling divine authority, is the ultimate transgression. It is a virus that must be eradicated. Does this not sound identical to the story of Lucifer, the lightbringer, whose gift of consciousness led to humanity's expulsion and his own condemnation? The name may be different, but the crime is exactly the same: empowering humanity. This theme of a lower controlling God-hoarding knowledge and a higher liberating figure trying to share it reaches its ultimate expression in a fascinating and radical collection of beliefs that flourished in the early Christian era, known as Gnosticism. The Gnostics were mystical Christians who believed they possessed a gnosis, a secret, intuitive knowledge of the divine. For them, the story of the Bible was an allegory for a much deeper cosmic drama. Their texts, like those found in the Nag Hammadi library discovered in Egypt in 1945, turn the traditional narrative completely on its head. According to many Gnostic schools of thought, the God who created the physical world, the God of the Old Testament, Yahweh, was not the ultimate, true God. He was a lesser, flawed being called the demiurge, a Greek word meaning public craftsman. This demiurge, also called Ildebarth or Saklas, the fool, was arrogant, jealous, and ignorant. He mistakenly believed he was the only God, famously declaring, "I am a jealous God. There is no other God beside me." For the Gnostics, this wasn't a statement of ultimate truth, but a cry of ignorant vanity. The demiurge created the physical universe and mankind as a prison. He fashioned Adam and Eve from matter, but accidentally, a spark of the true transcendent divine realm fell into his creation, lodging itself within humanity. This divine spark is our spirit, our true self. The demiurge and his angelic servants, the archons, wanted to keep humanity ignorant of this spark. They wanted to keep them as enslaved, worshipping subjects within the material prison of the world. The Garden of Eden, in this view, was the ultimate high-security facility, designed to keep Adam and Eve in a state of mindless servitude, unaware of their own inner divinity. Now, who becomes the hero in this inverted story? The serpent. In Gnostic texts like the Satapryphon of John Tot or Satan, the Origin of the World, Tot, the serpent is not an agent of evil. He is a messenger sent by a higher, benevolent divine power, often the feminine principle of wisdom, Sophia. He is a representative of the true, transcendent God, sent to awaken humanity. His purpose is to guide them to eat from the tree of knowledge, the tree of gnosis, so they might discover the divine spark within themselves and begin the journey of liberation from the control of the jealous demiurge. In this Gnostic cosmology, Lucifer, the light bringer, is a figure of redemption and enlightenment. He is not a tempter leading humanity to ruin, but a liberator breaking them out of a cosmic North Korea ruled by an ignorant tyrant. The sin he encourages is not disobedience, but self-realization. The fall is not a fall into sin, but a first step up, out of the darkness of material enslavement and into the light of spiritual awareness. This is a paradigm shift of seismic proportions. It reframes the God of Genesis as a jailer and the devil as a freedom fighter. It suggests that the entire foundation of Western religion might be based on worshipping the warden of our prison, while demonizing the very being who tried to set us free. This Gnostic interpretation, this idea of a liberating, lightbringer, may sound heretical. It was certainly declared so, and the Gnostic movements were brutally suppressed by the growing Orthodox Church in the 2nd and 3rd centuries. Their books were burned, their followers persecuted. But why? Why was this idea so dangerous? Because it relocates divinity. Instead of God being a distant king on a throne, a being to be feared and obeyed, the Gnostics taught that God was a spark within you. Your salvation didn't come from blind faith or obedience to an institution. It came from an inward journey of self, discovery to awaken that divine spark. This is a message of ultimate personal empowerment, and personal empowerment is always a threat to institutional power. A population that believes it holds God within itself is much harder to control than one that believes it is born in filth and utterly dependent on an external authority for salvation. Let us now return to the central accusation against Lucifer, the sin of pride. I will make myself like the Most High. We have been taught to see this as the pinnacle of arrogance. But with this new context, can we look at this pride in a different light? There is another, lesser-known story about Lucifer's fall, one found in various apocryphal and Islamic traditions, that does not involve a desire to usurp God's throne. This story is about the creation of Adam. In this version of events, after God formed Adam from clay, he commanded the entire heavenly host to bow down and pay homage to his new creation. All the angels complied, all except one. Lucifer, or Iblis, as he is known in the Quran, refused. When God asked him why he disobeyed a direct command, his answer was not, "I want your throne." His answer was, "Why should I bow to him? You created me from fire, and him you created from clay." On the surface, this still sounds like pride. He sees himself as superior, made of a purer element, fire, representing spirit and energy, while man is made of base matter, of dirt. But what if we are reading it wrong? What if this wasn't a statement of superiority, but a statement of principle? What if Lucifer, the light bringer, whose very essence was consciousness and light, looked at Adam and saw not just a lump of animated clay, but something more? What if he saw, locked within the clay, the same divine spark, the same potential for fire that he himself possessed? Perhaps his refusal to bow was not an act of looking down on humanity, but the exact opposite. It was an act of profound respect. He refused to participate in a feudal ceremony that positioned humanity as a subject, as an inferior to be worshipped on command. Bowing to Adam would have validated a hierarchy that Lucifer saw as illegitimate. In his view, a being containing a divine spark should not be an object of enforced veneration, nor should it be a subject. It should be a peer. His refusal was a protest. He was, in effect, saying to God, "This being is like me. It contains the fire. Why are you treating it like a thing of clay? Why are you asking me to participate in a ritual that reinforces its ignorance of its own true nature?" In this reading, Lucifer's pride is transintegrity. It becomes the refusal to betray a fundamental truth about the nature of consciousness. He wasn't saying, "I am better than Adam." He was saying, "We are the same, and I will not pretend otherwise." This was his unforgivable crime. He broke the cosmic protocol. He refused to play his part in the grand drama designed to keep humanity in its place. He was the one member of the court who refused to applaud the emperor's new clothes, pointing out that the king and his new favorite creation were both naked, spiritually unaware. This act of defiance shattered the illusion of the divine hierarchy and introduced the radical idea of spiritual equality. And for that, the system could not forgive him. He had to be cast out. So, the war in heaven described in the Book of Revelation, the battle between Michael and his angels against the dragon and his angels, can be seen in a new light. It may not have been a physical war with swords of light and celestial armor. It was a war of ideas, a philosophical civil war that split the cosmos. On one side stood the forces of order, stability and control, represented by Michael, whose name means, "Who is like God?" A question that is also a statement, reinforcing the uniqueness and supremacy of the ruling deity. Their ideology was that the universe requires hierarchy, that humanity must be kept in a state of blessed ignorance, serving and worshipping a power they can never truly comprehend. Knowledge is dangerous, free will leads to chaos, and the greatest good is unquestioning obedience. On the other side stood the dragon, the ancient serpent, Lucifer and his followers. Theirs was the party of enlightenment, of liberation, of radical individualism. Their ideology was that consciousness is the highest value in the universe, that any being endowed with the potential for self-awareness has an inalienable right to pursue that potential to its fullest extent. They believed that free will, even with its inherent risks of pain, suffering, and making the wrong choice, knowing good and evil, was infinitely superior to a managed existence in a state of blissful, ignorant slavery. They argued that the ultimate purpose of creation was not to create eternal servants for God, but to create more gods, to have consciousness blossom into its fullest, most realized form. This was the cosmic conflict. It was control versus freedom, security versus potential, dogma versus gnosis, and the establishment won. Lucifer and his angels were cast out. Humanity was exiled from the garden. History, as they say, is written by the victors. And the victors of this cosmic war wrote a history in which the champion of freedom was rebranded as the author of sin. The bringer of light was renamed the Prince of Darkness. The one who sought to make us gods was accused of wanting to be the one and only God. It is the most successful propaganda campaign in the history of the universe. They took his name, Lightbringer, and made it a curse. They took his gift, the gift of self-awareness and critical thought, and called it original sin. And they have spent the last several millennia warning us against the very tools he gave us, telling us that our own minds are not to be trusted, that our desire for knowledge is dangerous, and that our ultimate purpose is to fall to our knees and obey. We have journeyed far from the courts of human kings to the secret gardens of Eden, from the forbidden pages of Enoch to the revolutionary cosmology of the Gnostics. We have seen how the story of Lucifer, the proud and rebellious angel, is built not on solid scriptural rock, but on the shifting sands of interpretation, mistranslation, and a deliberate theological agenda. We have uncovered an alternative narrative, a story that has been suppressed and whispered in secret for thousands of years. This is the story of a being whose name means light-bringer, who did not seek to enslave creation, but to liberate it. A being who looked at a nascent humanity, trapped in a cage of blissful ignorance, and believed it deserved more. He offered not a lie, but a forbidden truth, that we contained within us a divine spark, the potential to be like God. His sin was not pride in the petty human sense. It was a profound and unwavering belief in the potential of consciousness itself. His rebellion was not against God, but against a system of control that sought to stifle that potential. The price for this was unimaginable. He was cast down, his name reviled, and he was made into the eternal scapegoat for all the pain and suffering that inevitably comes with the awesome, terrible gift of free will. He gave us the fire of the gods, and in return, he was chained to a rock for eternity, his name a byword for evil. So, what does this mean for us now? It means that the story of good versus evil is far more complex than we ever imagined. It means that the very foundations of our spiritual understanding of the world might be built on a foundational lie. It challenges us to look inward, to find that divine spark of fire that the light-bringer saw within us so long ago. The Gnostics believed this was the entire purpose of life, to awaken that inner divinity, to achieve gnosis, and to free ourselves from the systems of control, both external and internal, that seek to keep us in darkness. The story of Lucifer is ultimately a mirror. It forces us to ask terrifying questions. What is the nature of God? What is the price of knowledge? What does it truly mean to be free? If the being we have been taught to fear as the devil was, in fact, a champion for human potential, who, then, is the true adversary? Perhaps the real Satan, the real adversary, is not a horned creature in some fiery pit. Perhaps it is any system, any ideology, any religion or government, any voice, external or internal, that tells you that you are small, that you are born broken, that you should not ask questions, that you should not trust your own mind, and that you should fear the light of knowledge. The story ends where it began, with you. The fruit of the tree of knowledge was eaten long ago. The gift was given. Your eyes are open. The question that has echoed through the millennia from the garden to this very moment is, what will you do with what you now see? What other secrets, what other forbidden truths about our own power and our own destiny are still waiting to be uncovered? The journey into the darkness of the unknown is the only way to truly find the light.